Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So the wonderful people at Ohuhu actually sent me a couple of their acrylic marker sets for me to try out today. So on the right we have the Nahuku set with 24 colors, and then on the left we have another set of 24 color acrylic markers. But they are different sets, so let me go ahead and show you guys what's inside. So let's go ahead and start with the Nahuku set. So on the sleeve, it does have like little instructions to show you how to use the markers in a visual representation, but I went ahead, tore off the little sleeve so we can reveal our very cute little case. So I do like that this comes in a little sealable case where it has a zipper so you can carry it around with ease, and the fact that they come with little swatch cards. But not only that, they give you one that's like on normal white cardstock and one that's on black cardstock, which I think is great. There is also the user manual to show you how to activate the markers. Now, luckily for these ones, it doesn't require too much. So let's take a quick look at a close-up of one of the markers. So the markers come in this very sleek, very slim rounded body barrel alongside with a little window to show how much of the paint that you actually have left or how well you mixed it. So I went ahead and started to shake the marker to get the little ball inside to mix up the paint so that we have an even application when we start using the markers. So via the window, you can kind of see that it was a little bit kind of like separating a little bit, but once I start to shake the markers, you can see a little bit of bubbles and that there's more of a uniform color. So these markers also have a brush tip. There is no like pumping mechanism or like any buttons or anything like that, but I don't think it's like as necessary as these ones are considered their direct ink acrylic markers, where it kind of has smooth ink flowing through within the paint marker, so there's not really a need to have to pump or really press a button to release any of the paint. So for the next set, this is another 24 color marker set, but we have 48 markers instead of 24. So it comes in a very similar kind of carrying case with a zipper, and you can kind of see that there's like almost two sets of markers inside of here. There's one with the larger, thicker barrel and then one with a slimmer body. So the one with the slimmer body actually has more of this sharper, fine tip, and I'll talk a little bit about the tip later on in the video. But the larger one also has kind of like that typical broad kind of bullet tip nib, great for filling in larger areas. So moving on, we are going to be doing our quick little swatches. Now, I do appreciate that they include a white and a black kind of like cardstock paper for your swatches, as it's nice to see your overall coverage on a dark surface alongside with using it on a lighter surface. So you can kind of see how vibrant these colors are, and this one's specific to the Nahuku set. So before I do the color swatches for this other marker set, we need to activate our markers. So I went ahead and shook the barrel to make sure the paint is nice and mixed up. And then you can press on the tip to release some of the ink to the tip of your marker. So for these kind of like smaller ones, they do have a more firmer tip, which I really like to make kind of like thinner lines. So I'm excited to try this out a little bit later once we start working on some illustrations with them. Okay, before I forget to show you guys, you can actually change this tip to a chisel tip if you prefer. So you can see that it's kind of like the bullet broad tip. So let's go ahead. It's gonna be messy. Actually, it's like very easy to take out. You can see that on this side, it's like the chisel tip. So I'm gonna flip this around, get my hands dirty. There we go. So luckily you can't like shove this too far down, there is like a stopper, but these are actually very easy to remove. So if you ever want to have like the chisel tip for whatever reason, maybe you want to fill in flatter, larger areas all at once instead of having like a circular broad nib, you can definitely do that. So now that you know you have a option to kind of change the broad tip to a chisel tip, you can definitely pick and choose which one you kind of prefer. But for the most part, I ended up just sticking with using the thicker broad nib as well as the little fine tip. But this is kind of our color swatch for this particular paint set. Once again, they have both the white and the black kind of color swatches for you to see the coverage. And these ones are very, very opaque as well as very vibrant. And I think the coverage is just really good. There's a lot of paint in these markers in particular for like the 48 marker set, I find. But moving along, let's go ahead and do a little bit of testing. So my friend graciously always gives me these little coasters every so often from like the wood shop and stuff. So she gave me this round one, and I thought it'd be fun to paint a little bit of smaller portraits on them of my OC Maseki, and then on the back side we have my OC Kachine. So I wanted to kind of like see how well the coverage was on something like I think this is like MDF board, or like something closer to masonite where it's like compressed wood chips. So yeah, it kind of has a bit of like that wood texture, and I wanted to see how well these markers would perform adhering to a not super porous textured surface, I think. But later on we'll be working on something that's more equivalent to like an actual paint canvas, so you can kind of see how well these markers perform on those as well. So right away, when I started doing the line art for Maseki's little piece, I did notice there is a little bit of a difference between the two marker sets. So the one that has like the 24 colors but 48 set and the kind of like white case, I think there is a little bit of a difference between the two sets. So like I mentioned, the one with the white case, I think dispenses a little bit more paint. It has higher coverage in my opinion, and I don't know, it's just easier to get a more flat, complete kind of finish. While the other set still is very opaque. I do think it takes a little bit longer to get a full coverage, but I think it's good for if you want to do more like painterly stuff, because you get a little bit more leeway of having control over the amount of paint. But I did notice that the ones with the brush tip that's in the black case, they do seem to have more of a shiny sheen to them. Now it's not like super high shine and reflection like a super high gloss, but it is a little bit more shiny and reflective compared to the broad tip and the fine tip, where the paint is pretty much matte and has no real shimmer shine to them other than like the actual metallic color, and the black sometimes gives a slight bit of reflection if you tilt it a certain way. I'm not too sure if you can kind of see it in Kaisen's hair. In the middle section of his hair, it was kind of more of like a different finish than the rest. So I definitely think you kind of need to make sure that your paint is like well mixed within the barrel. Otherwise, maybe some of the separation between any of the binders or like whatever is in the paint separates. It does create a little bit of a different finish when it dries. So just to keep that in mind, make sure to keep shaking your pens and making sure that they're all nice and mixed up. So while working on the coasters, I really did appreciate that they had a fine tip marker set that had a more like firm tip rather than just the brush type that people are more used to. It just had a lot more of easier control doing like finer, thinner lines. So I did that majority of like line work for Kaizen and Maseki with kind of that particular marker, and then occasionally I will use the brush tip marker as well to get fin lines. But I just like how the marker paint or ink flowed inside kind of like the fine tip marker to get our fin consistent line work. So now that we have our coasters done, I don't know if you guys remember, but I think last week I ended up doing another acrylic marker portrait to go alongside with Mualani. So this time I want to kind of finish our triptych and draw Kachina so that she can join Mualani, who's on the left at the time. I guess now Kinich is on the left and Mualani's on the right. But I wanted to do one more portrait so that we could have all three of these Genshin characters all together. So unlike last time, I am going to be doing the sketching portion in time-lapse to kind of save a little bit of time, but I think because of the overhead angle, you can kind of see the entire process without me being in the way too much. So I think how I ended up doing Kachina's is that because she's going to be in the center of my low-key kind of like triptych idea, I wanted her to be more front-facing and her hands to be not exactly on the left or the right, so just more focused on the center, just because Kinich and Mualani are kind of more or less like reflected of each other. So I wanted to make sure that Kachina kind of fits nicely in the middle, so she's not swayed one way or the other too much. It's just perfectly directly in the middle. So as usual for the sketch, I like to sketch in a color that is not just normal graphite. I always find it becomes a little bit too muddy and dirty. So if you're working on a surface that smudges very easily, I do recommend using some kind of color lead if you have that available. So this time I'm using the Uni Nano Dia Colour in the color red, and this is an erasable mechanical pencil lead. So I usually use the Pilot Color Eno as well, but for some reason this one just works super well and it glides very easily on top of this linen canvas board. Let me switch over to the real-time footage and I'll see you guys later. Okay, so now that I have Kachine's sketch like all finished, I am gonna lighten up some of the places a little bit with the Kneaded Eraser. Luckily, I think I already erased majority of my guidelines, so they're not really going to be in the way. So I don't think we need to erase too much because the markers are opaque. I don't really mind if they kind of mix in a little bit with the reddish color that we have. So hopefully you can kind of see the sketch right here. It is done with a red lead. My camera is definitely making it look almost like brown or just like normal graphite. So yeah, this is kind of what we have, and hopefully it will match well with the one I have of Mualani and Kinich. So far I think she looks really cute. I did make her a little bit more like just forward facing in terms of like the entire pose and everything, so that she could be placed in the center regardless of like the positioning of Kinich and Mualani. So hopefully the lighting isn't too bad. I am losing daylight, so I'm using 2 artificial lights, so the shadows might be a little bit crazy. So I think we're gonna start off with light orange, and we'll probably use a combination of both like the large marker and the small marker. Yes, we'll use coral pink for the shadows. It is a little bit like on the darker side that I would like to prefer for the shadows right away, but I think we might be okay because it is good contrast between the two. Yeah, we're gonna need a lot of these colors. Let's start off here and start to kind of paint in Kachine. I might zoom in so you guys have a better idea of where I'm working and it won't be as hard to see. It's funny, as I'm like changing the camera angle, if I don't zoom in or like get it super crispy in terms of like the focus, you can kind of see that it's actually like a pinkish reddish color, but as soon as I make it like extra crispy, it almost looks like brown. Or am I crazy? But yeah, it is a red color. So let's start off with our skin tone. So I'm gonna quickly give a good shake. So I feel like the colors on the caps are pretty accurate, and you can kind of see like the ink inside from the transparent window, which I really like, because not only can you see the amount of paint you have, you can see whether or not it's like properly mixed, but also just like the color in general. So I like to keep a little bit of a scrap because some of the markers, because these are so juicy, they do sometimes just like leave a little bit of a blob or a blot at the very end. So I want to be a little bit careful. For the most part, because we're doing bigger areas first, it's not going to be too much of a problem, but I will try to blot them on the paper if I need to use it for like line art or like smaller or finer details. Then I will use like a scrap piece of paper to get rid of the excess. So for this portion, I like to block in areas and not fully cover lines if I don't need to. So you can see I'm blocking in kind of the eyes, because I think I will use the white as the white of the canvas to fill in, or like leave as the white of the eyes, as long as I can keep it clean. And just a heads up, I like working kind of like with a cel shaded style whenever I'm working on these portraits. So to keep the consistency with Mualani's and Kinich's version, I will be doing the same for Kachine. So we're not going to be really blending. In the future, I will try my best to maybe do a piece where I can attempt to blend with the paint markers instead. Using this, so I think I would have mentioned sometime when I was working on the Kachine and Maseki coasters, is that there is a bit of a difference between, at least not the consistency, the finish, I guess, of these paint markers. But from what I've noticed, maybe I can see it from the swatches. Yeah, so these are completely matte, minus like, I guess black has a little bit of a sheen. Silver and gold, they do have like the metallic. But these ones, I don't know how well you can see that. They kind of have sheen like this. So there is a difference in the type of acrylic paint, I think. So this one dries a bit more matte, while these ones dry with a slight gloss. So it's just something to keep in mind if you want to do like mixing and matching of the colors together. More recently, I've been using some kind of firmer nib for inking as well, just in the calligraphy pens, and I really like it. Because you can also use it like more towards its side and get like a larger fill if you need to. I don't know if other people have this problem. I definitely did when I was in uni. Compared to other people, is that I needed to, or at least I thought I needed to, rest my hand on the surface that I'm drawing because I liked having like really steady lines. Let me see if we can fill in our blue areas. I love this color so much. I had half the mind to be like, I want to draw Miku because this color reminds me of her hair. I might get rid of that. I don't know if I like the blush like that. But these markers are very opaque, also very loaded with paint, I guess. Might be the best way of describing it. So Kachine's hair is on the lighter side of this color that I'm using, so I might block out some of the highlights, and we are going to have to use probably Sunshine Yellow to pull out a lot of the hair color as well. Hopefully you can also kind of see that the paint marker does a good job coloring up my red lines. Okay, so we want to add our yellow. I don't think I did the patterning properly, so I will have to go back in later. I don't use too much yellow often, I think, for just like drawings in general. Yellow is just such a like a poppy, fun color. Scribbling away. I'm glad that they have bigger markers like this, because filling in larger areas would be a nightmare with just that small, thinner tip. I think we'll use like the light brown color for her mitts. Then the hands should be like more or less dry enough for me to add in our browns and oranges to her hands area. I should use more yellows and orange. These are so bright and fun, kind of like happy colors. Kachine's a little bit more like on the pink side though. This might have been a better color to use. Ah! No! I don't have a tissue with me though. It's okay, I'll clean that up after. It sucks. That's what I get for just relying on the spinning. Are we dry? Okay, so continuing on, I will have to do a few layers for some of the other colors. So this green is a little bit too on the blue side. It would have been nice to have something a little bit more muted. But I actually like the color range for these markers. They're very vibrant. So technically I've yet to try this, like any of these markers on the notebook paper for my sketchbook. I want to see how they hold up. I feel like my notebook paper tends to suck a lot of the paint out of these paint markers. I might switch greens. We'll see. I'll put the green back on top after. Even though like where I'm putting it, it technically should be darker on Kachine. Okay, we still have a lot of paint in this marker, which is good. So let's also add our second layer of our brown. That way when I come back, I can do the detailing for her eyes and parts of her hair without having to worry about this drying. I might even add this to the little fluffy parts at the bottom to help add a little bit of texture, but also to make it look a little bit more 3D. This diamond has gold on it. I think I will just use like the gold paint maybe, or we pull out like that ochre color. So apologies if Kachina doesn't match the rest of them too well. Definitely using different paint markers, there are going to be a little bit of inconsistencies. But I think she's going to turn out pretty cute regardless. I mean, I could even use purple if I wanted to. Brain's like loading. Trying to figure out where did I just place wet paint. Let's add in her pupils first so that we can figure out if I need to adjust. Color this in. I might add blue as well to darken this up before we add any black. This to do a little bit of her line work. I'm scared to use the black because it did blot really badly when I was working on Masaki's eyes. So I'll do like a light layer basically of the purple, and then we can use the black to kind of darken up some areas afterward. Degree. So she does have lashes. I do want to thicken up her eyeline a little bit more. Make this a lot bolder. Since her hair color is supposed to be technically on the lighter side. Okay, so other than her hair, she does have like the yellow stripe. Hopefully it's visible. Layer of her gray. This might not make sense to some people if you're not a fan of like VTubers or like the more recent wave from Niji Sanji. I have Freo, him saying "Queen never cry" stuck in my brain. This is the way he says it, I love. Okay, I think I let everything dry. This is kind of the state of it. So let's go ahead and do some line art. I am also going to change the angle of the camera so you guys can hopefully see a smidge better. But can you see, like, the purple stands out, but not enough. So I feel like it's gonna happen the same way how I do some of my alcohol marker drawings, where I start off with kind of like a line art color that's closer to more of a mid-tone. And then in the end, I'm gonna have to go in and darken a good chunk of the areas to be a lot darker. I kind of want to darken up her brows with like another color, but I guess for now we'll just outline them. So I might outline, actually, let me do that first, these petals and stuff with orange. Kind of push them in the foreground, but also like to keep them a little bit more separate compared to the purple. So I am nervous to use the black color. So let's let everything dry first, and then we'll go back in with our black to hopefully finish off Kachine. And then I'll show you guys what she looks like with the rest of the other characters that I've done. I guess who forgot some extra shadows. Okay, so the black color. I think we're using this one. So let's go ahead and test this. I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. I think those are thin enough lines. Granted, when I was doing like Kachine and Maseki, the lines became very thick because I was working also on a very small surface, so this shouldn't be too bad. I don't know why I'm starting on the eyes. The difference, the contrast. I like the contrast a lot when it comes to the eyes. It just makes her eyes stand out like in a nice way. At least I think it does. Okay, so how dark do we want to make this? Pupils first. Ah, so cute. Okay, so similar to my digital art, I am going to place it kind of near the highlights, give it that glossier feeling. Kind of pick and choose how much we want to fill in, and most likely fill in the outline as well a little bit more. How cute! I don't know, I just like the contrast like this. I just have to be careful with like placing my hand as usual, that I don't screw this up royally. But the contrast makes all the other colors like kind of pop, which is nice. I think just like Kachine's eyes alone makes this one my favorite. Or just like her face, it's so cute. Yeah, bless this type of marker. Makes line art so much easier, especially if you're using acrylic markers. This works wonderful. I like the brush tip ones too, just in general. because typically you can get fairly sharp lines from that as well. Don't screw this up. Because like in her actual model that I can see, she does have a little bit of yellow or like a lighter pale color kind of hovering at the bottom of her eyes. So I think this looks really cute. Yeah. Look how cute. So I probably won't add too much dark lines down here, just because like I don't like her hands are supposed to be more closer to the front. So like I could just outline majority of her gloves. I think we're good. So let me zoom out to show you guys. I don't know if I'm gonna add any extra highlights or anything. I think I'm just gonna leave it as is before I kind of like botch something up. Okay. So here is Kachine. Now I know the colors are not super accurate. I did try my best to make it as accurate as I could. There are some colors I could have replaced for other ones, but I think this actually turned out pretty cute. So if I can, I'll take like a photo with all of them. Here's Mulani. We have Keenich. So yeah, here we go on whoopsies. I'll take like a better picture in the morning. Kachine in the center. So Kachine and Mulani like this. I think it looks super cute. And then Kachina with Keenich like this as well. Because I don't think I want them facing the other way. I think this works the best. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed watching me try out these acrylic paint markers from Ohuhu. So if you're interested in either of these 24 sets, do check out the links in the description and check out any of these markers. Had a lot of fun just experimenting. I definitely think these will be a game changer just in general if I want to paint with acrylic markers and I want to mix and match. The kind of like firmer nib is probably my favorite, just because I can get like steadier lines. I don't really have to worry about like as much blotting of like the paint or anything like that. I feel like the idea of having the pushing down on the nib to let more of the paint being released and stuff is very easy. So yeah, I'll definitely use these smaller ones a lot more, probably in my sketchbook too. And the broad ones from this particular set won't be drained of the ink or like the paint as quickly. I think these ones would be fun to experiment if I want to try out like painting with them more rather than doing the cell shading method that I did for these portraits. So I do have, I think, at least 2 more of this particular size linen canvas type board. So I know some people asked if I could do other Genshin characters. Someone specifically requested Auroron, so maybe I will. But if you want to see any other characters kind of in this format, do let me know. I'm open to any, I guess, like VTubers, Genshin Impact characters, Honkai Star Rails, kind of like what I'm into right now. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you again to Ohuhu for sending me some markers to try out today. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!